Hello viewers, in this video we're going to show you how to change the double ball and single ball check valves on the carbonator. So the first thing you're going to want to do when changing the check valves is first shut the chiller system off. Next we're going to want to shut the water pressure off at the filtration system. So now we're going to want to shut the CO2 off at the CO2 cylinder. So just rotate that clockwise until it's completely closed. So now that we've shut the water, the power, and the CO2 off to the system, we're going to bleed all pressure in line. This is the water coming out of the carbonator, so it's going to take some time for it to completely empty. All right, so before we start changing the check valves, the first thing we need to do is we need to lower the water bath so we're not putting any of the bath water into the carbonator tank. So what I'm going to do is this white pipe stem here, I'm going to remove that. That's hooked up to a drain line, to the 3/8 drain line. So I'm just going to remove the pipe stem and allow the water bath to drop at least halfway down. All right, so the water level, we've taken probably 2/3 of the water out of the water bath. So I'm going to go ahead and insert the pipe stem back into its hole. All right, so we've dropped the water level, put the white pipe stem back into place. This is a pressure relief valve. I like to pull this pressure relief valve, make sure that any gas there's no captured gas still in here, even though we've purged it at the faucets. This one is clean. Next, we're going to cut these two lines and then start the removal process of the double ball and single ball check valves. All right, I've just cut the line that's between the T and the double ball check valve, just cut it in the center. The double ball check valve comes with the odokers and a piece of tubing. On the single ball, which is your gas inlet to your carbonator, this one is connected back to your CO2 tank. So I just take this and I cut as close to the barb fitting as I can. Once I've got that removed, now I can start the removal process of the check valves. All right, so we've taken and removed the tubing off of the double ball and single ball check valve, all the odokers, as well as off the T. So now we're going to start the removal process of these check valves. All right, so what I like to use is a 5/8 inch deep socket, and I'm going to start with the gas check valve. So I'm going to install this over this socket, and then I'm going to remove this. I've already cracked it. It's not this easy initially, but it does come. All right, going to take the same 5/8 deep socket, install it over the double ball check valve, and loosen that. Same thing, we're going to remove this, and then once we get these off, then we can use the 9/16 and remove the two end caps. All right, we learned something here with trying to replace this. It's nearly impossible to remove the 1/4 inch NPT from the tank. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and remove this 1/4 inch NPT adapter. There's a ball of spring, and then the upper portion, which is got the barb fitting on it. We're gonna go ahead and take that apart here. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I've got this single ball check valve. This has got a 1/4 inch NPT. This is a 9/16 hex on it. And then you've got the body, which houses the check ball and the spring, and then it's got the 1/4 inch barb fitting on it. We're going to go ahead and remove this we're going to disassemble this. All right, so I'm going to slowly remove the 1/4 inch NPT. Inside is a spring, a bearing, a sleeve, and a washer, a plastic washer. So I'm going to slowly remove this. So we'll set that down. Next, I'm going to pull out the spring. You're going to see there's a washer. Next, there's a bearing, and there is a sleeve. So the sleeve that comes out, the O-ring portion of the sleeve is the part that goes in first. Then you have your bearing that goes in next. On top of that is the spring. And last but not least is the little plastic washer that's going to create the seal. Now we're going to take this and install it on the unit that's currently on the carbonator. So what I found the easiest to do is lift the carbonator, remove the tie wraps that are holding this down, and just slide that spring carefully into the female port of that adapter, and then just slowly screw it on until it's hand tightened. Once you got it hand tightened, you could drop it back into place. We'll take our 5/8 deep socket and we'll give that a couple turns, tightening it down snugly. So now you've got the single ball check valve in place. We'll repeat the same process with the double ball check valve. So now we're going to repeat the same process with the double ball check valve. Double ball check valve is your water inlet to the carbonator tank. Now this kit comes with about 1 foot of 1/4-inch tubing and 2 Oedeker's, where the single ball check valve just came with the single ball check valve and 1 Oedeker. All right, so now we're going to remove this 1/4-inch MPT adapter from the double ball check valve. Taking my 9/16 wrench, sliding it over the threads. Then I'm going to take my 5/8 deep socket and I'm going to put it over the barb section. I'm going to break it loose. Once I break it loose, I'm going to unscrew the 1/4-inch NPT section slowly. Remember, there's a spring, a ball, the sleeve, and that plastic washer in here, so we don't want to make sure we don't want to lose those. So I'm going to keep those in place. Now I'm going to install this on the carbonator tank. All right, so now we're going to install the double ball check valve on the liquid inlet port. One thing that I like to do is I like to take that little plastic washer and first slide it over the top of this adapter. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide the spring into the orifice. Now I'm going to carefully keep the ball and the sleeve inside of the double ball check valve and then slide that over without losing the ball and hand tighten that onto the carbonator. Then with my 5/8 deep socket, I'm going to install that over the top. And tighten it down firmly. So next we're going to connect the CO2 line to the single ball check valve on the carbonator. So this line, this 1/4-inch line is connected back to the CO2 cylinder. So what you want to do is pull some slack because we've cut some off so we have plenty of room to play with. Then I'm going to insert the 10.5 Oedeker over the line first, and then I'm going to completely press that over the barb. Next, I'm going to bring my Oedeker down. I like to position it over the second barb, and then we'll go ahead and crimp it. All right, so now we're going to make the final connection of the double ball check valve, which is your water inlet to the carbonator tank. Remember, that came with 12 inches of this 1/4-inch braided tubing. So I'm going to measure the distance I need and then add about an extra inch just to play it safe. I'm going to go ahead and cut that and discard the extra, and then I'm going to slide that piece over the 1/4-inch barb T. Next, I'm going to slide the 2 Oedekers in over the tubing, put the 2 on, and then I'm going to connect the other end to the double ball check valve. Then I'll position the Oedekers over the second barb, and then I will make my final crimps. All right, now that we have the carbonator in place and the lines all connected and crimped, we're going to go ahead and turn on the water. Now that we've turned on the water, I'm going to go ahead and fill the water bath. So I'm going to rotate this purge line that we used earlier And we're gonna go ahead and rotate that to a dispense position. And I'm gonna continue to fill the water bath. Remember, we fill it up to where it's about 1/4 inch below this white pipe stem. The carbonator tank should be completely submerged. All right, so now we've turned the water on, filled the water bath. I'm gonna purge all the lines just to get everything primed. So just open both the still chilled and the sparkling. This is normal flow. The sparkling will be lower because it doesn't have any CO2 on yet. Once I turn the CO2 pressure, then that will flow at a much higher flow rate. But I've got all the air out of the lines. I'm gonna go ahead and close them, and now I'm gonna turn on the CO2. All right, so we've turned the power on to the chiller, we've turned the CO2 on, and so now we're gonna prime the carbonator. So we're gonna open this valve. As you can see, the flow is now higher, CO2 pressure driving it. And what you're gonna wanna do is run this until the carbonator pump cycles on. Once it cycles on, we'll go ahead and shut the valve, and we'll repeat it a couple times, get a couple cycles of that carbonator pump cycling on and off. So that was the carbonator pump, it just kicked on. So I'm gonna go ahead and cycle the water off, allow the carbonator to fill the tank, and then we'll repeat that. So I've emptied the bucket. I'm gonna open the sparkling water valve again. The reason why I emptied the bucket is I wanted to show how much volume of water is dispensed before the carbonator pump kicks on. So it should be 25 ounces or so. And when you look at the flow, you can see it's definitely changed, and you can see that there is a nice amount of carbonation in there. Pump kicked on. I'll go ahead and shut it. Last but not least, it's the taste test. That's a cold glass of sparkling water.